two rivers drag mountain water into a flat, unforgiving plain. Floods arrive late or early. The ground holds both salt and promise. Guess wrong about water and you do not harvest. Schedule it and you eat. South of the alluvial fan, the horizon is a ruler. A low hump is a future town. A shallow ditch is a future rule. The first engineers here are neighbors with shovels and calendars. Season after season, the flood lays silt where it slows and cuts where it races. The river ignores field lines, so people learn to manage the river, not chase it. They trade improvisation for pattern. Agriculture scales only when water is scheduled. The first system is not a building. It is a timetable tied to canals. Ubaid farmers stage the flood. Swollen water becomes turns. Turns become grain. Grain becomes time for other work. That cycle is the real invention. Wind, sun, and clay set the tempo. Open gates in the cool hours. Close before heat strips the sheet from the surface. Evaporation is a thief you can only slow, never stop. Archaeology still shows the cuts. Low canals with steady slopes. Field ditches stepping down like a ladder. Reed and mud revetments pinning the banks. Shirred lines on old berms where water once ran. At Ubaid sites, the toolkit rides with this water logic. Hose with worn edges. Clay sickle inserts with harvest polish. Reed mat impressions from temporary gates. Humble and standardized, which is the point. This is not one grand canal under a king's seal. It is a web of local reaches that add up to reliability. You see design in repeated measurements, field after field. Pattern is policy before policy has a name. The hierarchy is simple. Main canal feeds branches. Branches feed field ditches. Each link drops just enough to keep water moving without tearing banks. Gates decide winners and losers. A woven screen drops. A clay plug lifts. Behind the splash are people counting days, not coins. Households owe labor for clearing silt and repairing berms. The duty is measured in time. Show up and you keep your turn. Skip and the canal remembers longer than your relatives do. Timing is everything. Open too soon and salt rides up into roots. Open too late and plants starve between wet furrows. Good farming here is good scheduling from the ground up. Watch the flow across a day. Before sunrise, the intake is cracked. By mid-morning, water fans across the top plots. By noon, the screen drops to hold the sheet in place. Late light, the ditch settles and the gate closes. This rhythm is older than writing. It is choreography for mud, reeds, people, and time. It teaches without speaking. Fields are rectangles sized to a team's day. A ditch length you can dredge before sundown. A plot width a pair of oxen can score before the water warms. Geometry here is labor math. Measure lives in bodies first. A pace becomes a unit. A rope settles arguments. Later the rope becomes law. For now it keeps peace among cousins. Water budgets predate tablets. People balance inflow against seepage, evaporation, and theft. Roots and sequences stand in for ledgers. Memory is communal and accurate when dinner depends on it. Salt is the inland sea that never left. Every success pulls it closer. Too much water raises the table and drags minerals into the root zone. Too little leaves a crust to bake and harden. The schedule manages chemistry as much as fairness. Farmers rotate plots along the reach. Scrape crusts to berms. Flush ditches after harvest when flow is strongest. Choose barley because barley tolerates insult. Restraint is the hard skill. Reeds are the other crop. They bind banks. They become mats and boats. They patch roofs and screen gates. Quiet scaffolding that keeps water where it should be. Picture a morning on a branch canal. Mist hangs low. Two families lift a screen and let a sheet of water slide into the first ditch. Children step the berm to kick loose clods back in. An elder carries a rope and a notched stick. The rope lays out the next cut. The stick marks the fall. They talk in turns, not numbers. First day for this plot. Second for the neighbor below. Third for the field past the tamarisk clump. By noon, the water has crossed the top half of the rectangle. Seed goes in underhand and low. By evening, the gate drops and the ditch settles. Tomorrow, the next reach wakes up. That predictability is civilization's quiet start. Now widen the lens to a month. Intakes are cleared together after the first big rise. Crews cut reed for screens and patch weak berms. The calendar anchors 1,000 small tasks to windows you cannot miss. Mistakes have signatures. A scoured bend names a gate left high in wind. A salted patch tells on a neighbor who rushed his turn. The land records errors long after tempers cool. The fix is rehearsal. Work parties repeat the same sequence year after year. Children learn it by walking the route. The schedule is a memory palace built in mud and water. Predictable water becomes predictable surplus. Predictable surplus frees hours from subsistence. Hours become skills. Skills become precincts. The skeleton of a city not yet named. When water runs on time, someone shapes clay for standard bowls. Someone repairs boats. Someone counts baskets at a doorway without starving. Scheduling creates managers by accident, then creates the need to watch them. Ritual rides along because schedules need stories to stick. If the gate opens with a prayer, the turn feels fair. If a feast ends the cleaning day, the labor feels shared. The calendar wears sacred clothes so nobody forgets to show up. Disputes cluster at gates where value crosses thresholds. Witnesses gather. People point to last year's high watermarks. This is evidence before the tablet and practice for when tablets arrive. Zoom tighter to one audit day. A foreman moves with a list in his head. He notes which berms held, which screens bowed, which ditches silted too fast. His report is spoken, but the route itself is the ledger. Failure is not dramatic. It is a slow slide of yield across seasons. Schedules drift, then debts bloom, then fields are abandoned. Keeping time is cheaper than recovering from lost time. Success is invisible until a crisis hits. When a late flood arrives, trained crews already know who moves first and where. They are not heroic. They are on time. Mud turns into rooms, rooms into courtyards, courtyards into precincts with duties attached. One clears the main reach every third week. Another maintains intake screens where driftwood jams. Storage appears because surplus arrives at once. Bins demand guards. Guards demand counts. Counts demand rules. Institution sprouts like reeds at a bend. From above, centuries later, faint lines still sketch the old discipline across the plain. From the ground, then, it felt like fairness arriving on time with water. That feeling is loyalty to a schedule. Manage water, manage people. The habit that will define southern Mesopotamia is not worship or war. It is the schedule. Everything that follows is a larger, sharper version of this timetable. Bowls will standardize portions. Tokens will become tablets. Walls will circle mouths that depend on a turn at a gate. The logic is already here. The plain teaches one lesson with many accents. Start water when the field is ready. Stop before the salt speaks. Share the work or lose the turn. Remember the sequence until clay can remember for you.